Good morning. Welcome to One Baha'i, that regular show where I just sit here and talk a little bit about my thoughts on the Baha'i faith. Well, as you can see, I'm outside again. It's a beautiful day here in BC. You get one little piece of grass right there. I wish I could show you the beautiful background, but I'm not sure how to do this all that well. I need to find a better stand. So last week, I talked a little bit about the four valleys and how we could see each valley as describing a phenotype of people. And how when we understand which valley somebody is in, we have a better understanding of how to approach them, how to help share spiritual ideas with them. So I was asked to talk a little bit more about that. I thought I would, why not? Now, I'm not an expert on this. I don't know a lot about it, to be honest. These are just personal thoughts. I would love to hear what other people have to say on it, because I'm only at the beginning of learning about it. So I thought I would grab a copy of Call of the Divine Beloved, read this section in the Four Valleys. I've already alluded to the introduction already, and how it ends with, you're a teacher and you're going to go teach. This is good. There are only four types of people who are seeking. Now, for myself, I kind of summarize them as the first one is the valley of self. It pertains to the self, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The second one is the valley of the intellect, and again, these are just my abbreviations, nothing official. The third valley is like the valley of love. He says the abode of the lodestone of hearts. So that which attracts the hearts. I think of it as love. I just abbreviate it. And the fourth one is the attraction to the beauty of the beloved. Now, superficially, I initially thought that the second valley would pertain to, say, a scientist or an atheist. But then I realized that I actually know scientists who are scientists not because they're attracted to the intellect, but because they're attracted to the beauty of nature. They have a passionate love of the beauty of science. So I think they would actually be in the third valley, even though they're a scientist. So I wanted to get back to the first valley for a minute. I'll just read a little bit and share a couple of quick thoughts. If the wayfarers be among them that seek after the sanctuary of the desired one, this plain pertaineth to the self. But the self which is intended is the self of God that pervadeth all his laws. In this station, the self is not to be rejected, but beloved. It is regarded with favor and is not to be shunned. So, as we read different passages in different religious writings, we see it in Buddhism, we see it in all sorts of religions. They talk about denying the self, overcoming the self, getting rid of the self, being as nothing. But this is not what Baha'u'llah is saying here. He is not referring to the self that leads to egotism. It is as he says in the Hidden Words, Arabic number 13, turn thy sight unto thyself, that thou mayest find me standing within thee, mighty, powerful, and self-subsisting. You see, there's a lot in the writings about finding God within. And again, we see that in many different religions. You know, when he says, noble have I created thee, my light is within thee. These are all signs of God within us. So, if we find someone who is trying to better know themselves, as is said in many religions, know thyself and you know God. And it's not that we are God, but we have the light of God within us. If we understand that that is what attracts somebody, that is how they try to come to their understanding of religion, then it is this first valley that we want to work with. You see, he says a paragraph on, he says, this is the plane of the soul that is pleasing unto God, whereof he saith, enter thou among my servants, and enter thou my paradise. Again, it is that distinction between the self of egotism and the self that reflects God. If someone is striving to better know themselves, we can praise the light of God that shines within them. We can praise the mercy that they show, the compassion that they show. And we can talk about how other virtues can further enhance what they already have, and how all of these come from God. The more that we polish the mirror of our soul, the better we can reflect the light of God. So as we polish ourselves, then we see God more clearly. This station has myriad signs and countless tokens. Hence, it is said, we will surely show them our signs in the world and within themselves, until it become plain to them that there is no God save him. And then he tells a story about a grammarian, one who is learned in grammar. And he talks about how a mystic and the grammarian ended up at the sea of grandeur. And the mystic, and he says, quote, putting his trust in God, straightway flung himself into the waves. But the grammarian stood bewildered and lost in thoughts that were as words traced upon the water. The mystic called out to him, why dost thou not follow? The grammarian answered, O brother, what can I do? As I dare not advance, I must needs go back again. And then the mystic says, cast away what you know and jump in the water. There's a lot of references to grammarians in the writings, and I find that interesting. When I read this, I am reminded of those people who are so caught up in the rules and it's got to be done this way that they have lost the flexibility that is necessary for advancement. And it is as if he is saying, when you're too caught up in the rules, you can't jump in the sea of grandeur, that divine sea of knowledge. And I'm reminded of when the Bab was in Tabriz on trial, and one of the clergy, they said, who do you think you are? Well, don't ask a messenger of God that, because they'll tell you. And he said, if you're a messenger from God, what message do you have? And the Bab began to recite verses. And this poor, ignorant cleric, he chastised the Bab for misconjugating a verb. Here he is, revealing the verses of God, and this guy's concerned about the conjugation of a verb. And the Bab points out that that particular verb was conjugated that way a few times in the Quran itself. So he is explaining that it's not misconjugated. It's conjugated the same way in the Quran. It's that this poor guy was judging by his own deficient standards. He was so caught up in his self, his egotism. He was right. He knew the laws of grammar. And because of that, he denied the Bab and missed him. He couldn't see past his own deficient set of rules. And here, this poor grammarian in this story is so caught up in what he knows that he's unable to move beyond that and jump into the sea of mysteries, the sea of grandeur. With renunciation, Baha'u'llah quotes, not with grammar's rules, one must be armed. Be nothing then, and cross this sea unharmed. And the last sentence in this valley, he says, likewise he saith, and be ye not like those who forget God, and whom he hath therefore caused to forget their own selves. Such men are the evildoers. When I think of those who forget God, I don't think of the atheists. That's a definitional thing. They just haven't defined God. When I think of those who forget God, I think of those who forget the rules, the laws that God gives. So he seems to me to be saying, don't be like those who forget God and deny the rules and live according to their own selfish whims, doing whatever they pleaseth, because God has caused them to forget their own selves. Their true self is that mirror that reflects the light of God. And the best way that we can reflect this light is by being obedient to his laws. These are the laws that allow us to best exemplify these virtues. So don't be like the ones who forget these things. He says, such men are the evildoers. There are a lot of people out there who claim some sort of religious freedom, being able to do whatever they feel like, and they forget to be obedient to the laws of God. So here it seems to me to be a caution against that, that the highest self that we can attain is the self that is obedient to these laws. So I don't know if that's helped talk about that valley or not. I find it useful for me to be able to enunciate it, to speak about it. I still feel like I don't have a grasp on it yet, but I feel like I have a better understanding of that type of individual who would look at themselves and how I can help them see the light of God within themselves without it turning into a form of egotism. That's always the trick. So that was what I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to think about looking at the next valley tomorrow, Valley of the Intellect. We'll see. I'll reflect on it today. I'll read it. I'll see what I can come up with. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining. It's kind of fun because as I'm watching the camera, I can see all these little ants scurrying around behind it, carrying their food back to their home. I love it. Anyways, thank you very much. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you actually like this, feel free to subscribe. It's up to you. It doesn't matter to me. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this valley too. So thank you again. We'll talk tomorrow.